It's a dream of every founder to actually have people just eat right off their hand and, just come after their product. That's the dream because you want growth. But it really doesn't happen that way in reality because you're building this product, you're so nose down into it. And the important thing is discoverability. So then there's the product, then there's the choice of the market. And the most important one, as you say in your program as well, is the go to market, which is how exactly are customers discovering you and you're able to take them and nurture them through the sale process. So before we joined the program, we did have some traction. We did have some repeatability in a specific market. But one of the objectives of us joining the GTM program also was to enter a new market. And that was when we were making the shift from selling in Asia alone to selling in a global market. And if I actually, just before this podcast, I was looking at some of the metrics. And then I realized that in Q1 of last year, in 2021, we were probably getting 22 free trials. But in Q1 of 2022, we actually were getting about 103 free trials in a quarter. I know that there was something which happened during the year, which we learned and applied, and we were able to get the numbers up. And this number is, of course, grown from there to about 3/4. But what we also realized here is that 27% of our trials are now coming from the market, global markets, which was actually non-existent last year. So that was the shift that we saw post the GDM program. We've grown by over 80% at the moment, and I'm just looking at September metrics before this call. I think the growth has been 3x from the lead front, and we are looking at how do we really triple this next year. So that's really the growth target that we've kept for ourselves.
As part of our 10-part series called SaaS and Scotch, I'm interviewing founders who've gone through my SaaS go-to-market coaching program and seen success. On today's incredible episode, I have Vidya Santanam, CEO of Fitbots. Fitbots is an OKR platform. It helps you implement OKRs. But here's the twist. They work with you to ensure your OKR deployments do not fail, which is a huge problem with companies today. Now, when Vidya started working with us inside of the SaaS go-to-market coaching program, they had one big problem. It had customers in one part of the world, but they didn't have a global audience. And so out of Singapore and other parts of the world, their global team came together and invested into the go-to-market program. And they revamped their go-to-market strategy to actually reach a global audience. It's been an incredible journey watching Vidya and her team incorporate everything in the go-to-market program. And on this episode, she's going to walk you through the key lessons that she's learned in her founder-led go-to-market journey in actually getting her message out to the global audience for her SaaS product. It's not always the case that companies in other parts of the world invest into go-to-market in this way. They did, and they're seeing the results. So I'm really excited for this episode. If you're ready to dig into it, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's dig right into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of SaaS and Scotch. Today, I have Vidya Santanam from Fitbots. Vidya, welcome to the show. So excited to have you over here.
Thanks, TK. I'm absolutely excited as well.
I was looking back. The way we met was we were on LinkedIn, and then I was a guest on your podcast. And then you became a member in our go-to-market program. And fast forward, that was May of 2021 or something like that. And that feels like ages ago, but it hasn't been that long, interestingly enough, May plus October, a few months. So it's been a little over a year. So it's crazy. And I'm so glad. I've been looking forward to this conversation because we've had so many conversations about the different inflection points you've been going through in the business. So I wanted to make sure you come on to tell your story. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, TK. And I do remember that because I remember going up to your YouTube channel, watching all your videos. And I was talking to my co-founder and I said, we must get TK as part of our podcast. You were so kind enough to immediately reply on LinkedIn and be part of it. So thank you. And I'm absolutely excited to be here.
Yeah. So let's take it from the top. Tell us what you guys do at Fitbots and what the company's about, and then we can dig more into how it came to be.
Oh, absolutely. So I'll start with the problem that we're trying to solve. And it's essentially in the world that we're all working in. It's a hybrid world. There are over 400 million people who are going to continue working hybrid till 2025. And what that essentially means for companies, and if we just look around our own teams, is that we may not really be sitting next to each other. So the entire collaboration needs to be a lot more outcome driven because business outcomes is what every founder, every CEO has on his or her mind. So that's where it all started. And what we do is we help CEOs and founders drive alignment of their companies using OKRs. So we have an OKR software along with the network of OKR coaches. So that's what we do.
That's awesome. I want to dig more into OKRs because they're so powerful. I believe in them. And obviously, like we preach them inside of our program and everyone we work with. How did you and your co-founder come to solving this problem or working on this problem with OKRs?
Yeah, so actually, it's taken me back about 5 years now. So when I was working in I was in a corporate job. I used to work for a $1 billion company named Mindtree, leading leadership building and talent management. And that's where I used to work very closely with leaders in strategy execution as well, because leadership building is a big part of strategy execution. And my tech co-founder, Kashi, was my colleague in the same company. And he used to build CRM systems which scale to about 100 million users for other organizations. Yeah. So we said, okay, leaders have all these insights, but what are they really doing about it? And are they able to see how teams are able to make progress? So that was the starting point of FitBots. But the first version of FitBots was actually a career fitness platform. And that's how the word FitBots came about. So we said, okay, if people need to be successful, they need to think about their careers. So we built the first version, took it to a bunch of users, and none of them came back to it. Right. So it's okay, if people are not really thinking about their careers, what exactly are they thinking about? And that's when teams came up to us and said that, hey, we don't know what our current goals are. So we went back to the drawing board and we said, okay, that's where OKRs fit in, and it's really bridging the gap between strategy and execution.
Interesting. So just for everyone in the audience, I think everyone knows, but OKRs are objectives and key results. It's a system that was developed by Intel. I think Andy Grove was one of the first ones that talked about it. And then Google, every major company in Silicon Valley and tech company has adopted it. And now it's gone beyond that. And it allows your leadership team to set objectives and key results, and it flows down through the organization. So, and I think we have some episodes on OKRs. We'll link to it below if you want to implement it. One of the things I loved about your story was that you weren't just building software for OKRs. You guys had coaching and you had expertise around OKRs. And one of the things I know from my personal experience is with OKRs, they tend to fail. The implementation tends to fail. Like I've been guilty of this, baby TK, like we get into a room, we'll get our OKRs done. We'd come away with like 500 OKRs and key results, and they would not look at it again. And so tell us a little bit around what makes for successful OKRs if a CEO or a founder that's watching is looking to adopt it, and where does software come into play?
So you're absolutely spot on. In fact, many OKR rollouts fail. And I think the big learning there is because the right tools and techniques have not been used to sustain OKRs, or due to lack of sponsorship. So for instance, in the context of ToutApp, you actually were sponsoring OKRs. And I remember that great objective statement, which is paint the town blue. And that was one of your objective statements, I remember. So that's actually very strong sponsorship is what we feel. When the founder is inspired, then the rest of the teams would also be inspired around OKRs. So what we essentially learned from this is when we started building FitBots, we realized that not every problem in the world can be solved by software alone. Yes, we are a SaaS company, but along with that, we need to help teams actually understand OKR so that we're able to sustain it. With sustenance, it improves our renewal rates as well. So that's where my co-founder and we got certified as OKR coaches. So we said, okay, let's drink our own champagne and let's get certified as OKR coaches.
That's awesome.
Teams. Yeah. And then we went on to coaching teams. So we coached about 650, it's about 700 plus teams we've coached till now. We still continue doing that just to learn more about our product. Ran about 1,000 plus check-in meetings, got into the trenches, and then build the software, which is important from a user perspective. By doing that, we also certified a community of OKR coaches and champions. So we run certifications along with this because at the end of the day, we want to set up people for success and not essentially only push software to them.
That's awesome. Yeah, what I found is even go to market, for example, or it's like sales and marketing. It's like, oh yeah, that's easy. You just go do this thing. And like it feels like it's easy enough to do, but the devil is in the details. And I think that's equally true for OKRs where, yeah, you mean objectives and key results and yeah, everyone can do it, right? Who can't write an objective? But then turns out there's an art to it. And then there's an aspect of managing it, like all those things come together to really make it work. Okay, so you guys are building the company, you have some revenues, and then there was this point where you joined the go-to-market program. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned as a founder embracing go-to-market in this phase of embracing founder-led growth. Obviously, you've had tremendous growth. I was looking at your original application where you were, and I know like we were looking at where you got to. So tell us a little bit about what you've learned for other founders that are watching, other CEOs and practitioners that are watching on what you learned about go-to-market over this past year and change.
When I think about this, it's a dream of every founder to actually have people just eat right off their hand and, just come after their product. That's the dream because you want growth. But it really doesn't happen that way in reality because you're building this product, you're so nose down into it. And the important thing is discoverability. So then there's the product, then there's the choice of the market. The most important one, as you say in your program as well, is the go-to-market, which is how exactly are customers discovering you and you're able to take them and nurture them through the sale process. So before we joined the program, we did have some traction. We did have some repeatability in a specific market. But one of the objectives of us joining the GTM program also was to enter a new market. And that was when we were making the shift from selling in Asia alone to selling in a global market. And if I actually, just before this podcast, I was looking at some of the metrics. And then I realized that in Q1 of last year, in 2021, we were probably getting 22 free trials. But in Q1 of 2022, we're getting about 103 free trials in a quarter. So I know that there was something which happened during the year, which we, learned and applied, and we were able to get the numbers up. And this number is, of course, grown from there to about 3 quarters. But what we also realized here is that 27% of our trials are now coming from global markets, which was actually non-existent last year. So that was the shift that we saw post the GTM program.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember you guys were like, look, in this geo, we know how to do it. In this geo, we don't. We want to make our brand known in this other geo and start to get the momentum going. And as you said, like, I think it's always funny. This is why I like doing these 1-year check-ins or 1-year change, because in the moment, it always seems like, is it working? Is it not? But looking back, you see that things compound and kick in and start to grow, which is incredible.
Yeah, you said it, TK. And I think the learnings have been incredible. It also brought a lot of structure and has also scaled me as a founder. Because one of the learnings that I have in running FitBots is it's not enough to scale the business. You have to scale yourself as well, because only then you would be able to scale teams around you. So just the entire element of how do you look at GTM, right from sharpening the ICP, setting up the Broadway show, and before that, the manifesto, which is one of the most important ones, just thinking about it step by step has also made us transfer those learnings to the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember, we did the work, and kudos to you. You did a lot of the work on the ICP, the manifesto, the Broadway show with your team. You guys really executed on it. You started watching your numbers. And so what I thought was interesting in our relationship was there was all these pieces around the business and go to market, but then a lot of the conversations you and I had were almost like being CEO. It's like, how do you adapt to the new levels and how do you take on the new challenges? And I think that's what you're also alluding to, like the business changes. So your role changes and how you operate change. Tell us a little bit around what you've learned just, personally as a CEO, as you've grown, because I've seen you grown in this role. As you've grown the companies, what's that been like for you, that journey?
I think it's about first making a choice about what is that absolute something which only I can do as a CEO. And those are core to my task list today because nobody else within the organization can do it. And that's something that we spoke about during one of the mentorship call, which is that, something that only you can do, which nobody else can do because they don't have that span of influence or the sphere of influence. So I started making a list of that, and that could range from anything from building strategic partnerships, reaching out to, let's say, proactively reaching out to investors, reaching out to customers, that is key connects within the customer organization. So that's something which probably only a founder could do. So I started building those lists. The second is what's that something which will, if I give it to my team, she or he would learn better. So for instance, earlier we used to do all the sales demos, or I would be part of every single sales demo. Once we started building the team, that was something that we coach teams to actually run sales demos and then be part of it only during the closure or whenever they, and one of the learnings is that I know servant leadership is probably a term which everybody's heard, but I think the way we kind of have to look at it, especially at an early stage startup, is that in order to enable the team, you have to be at their service. So if they need you in a demo, just drop everything and then go for the demo because they need you there. So that's something that I've learned to implement as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like, how do you let go of certain things that you've been part of? But then how do you also let the team know that you're there for them if they need it? But also like, hey, there are other things that you can be doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah,
probably become a little more effective on that, but I have a long way to go, of course.
it's a work in progress. And so what has top line growth been for you guys? Like as you've so from like last year to this year, like year over year, how's the growth been for you? Because I know that was one of your biggest priorities beyond expanding into other geos.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've grown by over 80% at the moment, and I'm just looking at September metrics before this call.
Nice.
And from I think the growth has been 3x from the lead front, and we are looking at how do we really triple this next year. So that's really the growth target that we've kept for ourselves.
So you obviously had this goal around expanding into geos, knowing what you know now, and like with other founders are thinking about like, hey, we want to expand into other geos. Did that play out the way you wanted it to? Was that worthwhile? Because I know your existing geo grew, the other geo grew. Like, what do you know now? Like knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? Or what would you tell a founder that's thinking about expanding into other geographies?
So definitely the effort was very worthwhile because in fact, US is a big market for us. And we started seeing customer conversions from the market and also happy customers from the geo. So there's something that we're doing which is working right, which is, and one of the assumptions that we had is that maybe it's the same GTM for a different geo as well, which is not true. So we were able to kind of fine tune our messaging and who we reach out to, what's the persona of the buyer we reach out to. So that entire learning process was very enriching. And that kind of showed in the lead flow as well. So 27%, as I was sharing, is coming from these markets, as well as we've got about 6 customers more from this geo as compared to last year. So the entire customer acquisition has also worked for us. We are, of course, wanting to acquire more, of course.
When you think about markets, one of the things we've always gone back to is like there's OKRs, there's OKR software. You're fighting against the spreadsheet. You're fighting against other OKR companies. It's a whole different game when you're a founder in a competitive space. So, and you, I think, embrace that. You're like, yeah, but we're going to differentiate in ways where it's obvious that you want to go with us. How has that been for you? Like, what have you learned from a go-to-market perspective, from a competitive, like being in a competitive space like OKRs? What have you learned on what's allowed you to manage that game as a founder?
So one of the learnings is that there are many companies whom we have interacted with during the sales process who say that, yeah, we have a software, but we don't know how to use it. So one of the differentiators that we have is, hey, we'll help you how to use it and use it well and help you sustain it. So there is a way to differentiate because what we've essentially thought about is the entire journey of a customer. It's not only the sales, but really the post-sales. So customer success, for instance, everybody within FitBots is certified on OKRs. So our customer success also coaches being a certified OKR expert. So that gives a lot of value to teams and I think reassurance to the leadership team that, okay, the next level teams are coached on OKRs and how to do it right. So that's one way we're attempting to differentiate ourselves.
I always thought that was a cool way to do it because it's like, hey, you just put it on a spreadsheet, you probably did it wrong. You can buy software, but you're probably doing that wrong. But if you have software with the experts and together you're able to really make sure your OKRs are successful, then that's what you want. And so like, it's a compelling value proposition, I think, for founders for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm glad we're doing this episode. This is a small side note. Everyone thinks this is like a backdrop, but now they're like clearly going to see like we're doing this where it's 7 a.m. my time and you're based in Delhi, I think. Is that right?
I'm based in Bangalore at the moment.
Bangalore at the moment. Okay. So you're based in Bangalore. What time is it over there?
It's close to 6 p.m. in the evening.
Okay. 6 p.m. Yeah. So we're both like doing the edges. So people can finally feel like, no, this is very real. Like we actually, like I live here. Because they're like, is that like a backdrop? I'm like, no, that's I live here. Like, why would someone use a big backdrop? Like, is that, yeah. So it's like, no, the sun is about to come up in Dallas. So it's kind of cool. Okay. So going back to the main point. So as you start to look ahead, like, what are you most excited about in terms of FitBots, in terms of go to market? Like, what's top of mind for you as you continue to grow the company?
So at the stage that I'm in, we're very confident that we can actually win in this space and win in new markets. So that confidence is set in because we've proven it. In the last year, we actually used it as a hypothesis. We said, okay, let's give it a try. Let's do our content marketing. Let's do the Broadway show. So 40% of our leads today comes in through inbound. And it's
That's
because
awesome.
of all the content that we generate, and then we put it out there. We get discovered, and the discovery is across from different countries, not only Asia, but from different countries. So I think that's a big learning, that it is possible and founders can do it if they just put in the effort. And that's something that we've realized over the last 1 year. The second, our product also has been maturing, because every time we actually speak to users, whether it's in companies which are irrespective of the geo, because these are global companies we work with, we're building a whole suite of features to actually help teams achieve their OKRs. So that's going to be like a big new release that we're coming up with, and the teams are working very hard. I think I've never felt more bullish than ever that yes, FitBots is here to stay, and then we're here to help customers.
I always like to ask this as like a sort of a bookend. We went through this whole journey of, ICP, Manifesto, Broadway Show. You went through this whole journey of growing the company. You've taken those components. You've also done things on your own, and you've grown as a CEO. What's the one thing, if any, that's been an unexpected benefit out of joining the go-to-market program that you were like not quite expecting, but you got out of it, that you were like, oh, I didn't know I would get that, but here we are? Like, was there anything like that as you went through this process of working together over the past year, embracing founder-led go-to-market?
One of the biggest learnings that we had is how to do effective messaging for a new market. Because when we were trying to position FitBots in the initial stage, when we joined the go-to-market program, we had a very different website, and that did not have a global appeal. So I remember in one of the hot seat calls, we had actually put up our new website, and there was the founder of Sierra.ai who was also there as part of the cohort. And he said, Saurabh. He said, hey, you guys have got a good website. So that was like an aha moment for us, saying that, okay, there's somebody from a different geo who's actually looking at the website and is able to relate to it. So that gave us a lot of reassurance that something that we did around the website, changing it, was at least being looked at, and people understood what we were trying to sell. So that was one. The second is on the entire element of less is always more. Because when we started building the manifesto, I remember the first version of it was very verbose. But then in 3 iterations, we actually got it down to 5 simple slides, and we did the second version of the manifesto as well. And actually, as we started distributing the manifesto, I went back to TK, the mails that you send along with your manifesto, and I realized the 5x5 method, which is also there within the program. So we again went back to our email marketing, and we said, okay, how do we make it very, very specific and make it very objective driven? What should be the objective of the mail? So I think these 3 are very, very powerful learnings, and I was able to learn myself, and so was my team. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for embracing the framework and following it. Like, that makes a huge difference. And clearly your lead flow is up. Breaking into a new geo is no small feat. Growing the revenues like you have. And really, it's a lot of foundational work you've done. So you should be very proud of yourself. And it's just like, you're like poised to start to compound and grow based on all the seeds that you've planted over the last year, for sure, which is exciting for you.
Thanks, TK. And, thank you for all your help and support and mentorship.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. So for founders, CEOs, investors, executives all watching, if they want FitBots OKRs, they're like, we're probably doing OKRs wrong, we probably want some coaching, like, what's the best way to learn more about FitBots? Where should they go?
You could visit our website, fitbots.com.
Which is great.
There are a lot of options to actually reach out. You can either try it free, or you could, and here we have a hybrid motion, which we also learned in your program, is that the market always wins. So you could either talk to sales, or you could try it free. And we're happy to, jump on a call with you and help you through your OKRs. We can even audit your OKRs during the call.
Awesome. And, I know that video for you, like, there's a lot of founders that are watching that's going to be very inspired by your story, being a CEO, going across geos, running a company globally, embracing go-to-market. So if they wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best communication platform? Like, should they go on LinkedIn or email? Like, how could they get in touch with you if they wanted to just follow your story?
They could do either. I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Vidya Santanam on LinkedIn, and or
We'll link
Vidya
to
at
it below.
Fitbots. Yeah, Vidya at fitbots.com.
Awesome. We'll link to both of those below. Awesome. Vidya, thank you so much. This was such a blast. Like, we've been through a lot in the journey, and so I thought it would be really good to kind of circle back and compare notes. And I know that others will get inspired from your journey and also learn a lot based on what you've shared, especially for those founders that are breaking into new geos. Like, I think this is going to be really cool, especially with what you've seen and what you've learned. So thank you so much for doing this. It means a lot.
Thank you, TK. An absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.